Stuff no one tells you about long-term relationships that you gotta know. Right now, you may be enjoying the initial phase of your relationship, the honeymoon stage, as specialists call it. And that's wonderful. However, you might need to switch or rather adjust your thinking in the long term. If your couple manages to pass the initial phase and maintain the relationship over time, some unpleasant things could creep out every now and then. Nothing serious though, but it's better to know them in advance. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. I'm doing fantastic today. I hope you are doing marvelous. If you're doing as fantastic as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's roll. Today I want to talk to you about stuff that no one tells you about long-term relationships. And you got to know this stuff before engaging in a relationship over a long time. Now, the first thing is that you'll be vulnerable at times, and that's okay. It's very important to know that in a relationship spanning 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, there are moments where you'll be vulnerable. You'll feel like, wow, this is really, your partner knows you, he or she saying something that really affects you deeply, and you got to accept it. The thing here you have to understand is that it's not that they're saying something to you to make you feel bad. It's more that they are just talking about reality. They are exposing things that you might not want to hear, but that in the long run will help you, right? For instance, let's say you have some pain, so you have some fears that actually stem out of childhood, things that produce anxiety or some kind of stress on you. They might actually say this every now and then, but again, the idea here is that it's nothing bad. Now, sometimes they might say it in a conflict, right? During an argument, and this might actually make you a little angry. But the bottom line here is that remember that it's coming from a place of positivity. This is the partner you've been with for the last 30 years or 40 years, and he or she knows that you are vulnerable, okay? So it's okay to be vulnerable. Number two, another stuff that people need to tell you that they never teach you in school or in life, rather, is that it's not always about you, right? If you're still in the honeymoon stage, you and your partner might be drunk in love, right? You want to be with each other 24/7, but it's really critical to understand that, in a long-term relationship, you need to give each other some degree of independence, and this is very important. You got to find your passions, and he or she has to find his or her own passions. You got to sort of have a common denominator. That's very important, of course, but you need to have your personal, independent leisure times and activities you engage in. Do you want to go out Friday night to drink with the boys? Do it. Do you want to hang out with the girls on Saturday night or Saturday afternoon? Do it. You have to allow each other to have some kind of independence, and this is very important. And out of that autonomy will emerge a healthy relationship. Another thing that's very important is that when you have children, you have to understand that sometimes the focus will shift on the children. So you will basically become passé, you and your partner, or you or your partner, depending on the role here. But the bottom line here is that the focus and all the energy and resources will be put into the rearing of the children. So it's very important to understand it's not always about you, and it's okay. The third thing you need to know that they never talk to you about is that arguments are part of the deal. If you are in a long-term relationship, arguing is unavoidable, right? I'm not talking about a serious war. I'm not talking about World War III in your relationship. But the thing is, you are going to argue. And this could be over a little thing like, it could be over something very tiny, or it could be something serious. No matter what, you have to understand that you need to think about the relationship first. You need to think about communicating to Rain, and most importantly, after the argument, right? So it's not about, a long-term relationship. It's not going to be, just a very pleasant ride all the time, right? So you have to learn how to change the communication dynamic. You have to be a great listener. You have to understand and sometimes validate your partner's emotional experience, right? You have to use empathy. You have to use sympathy. You have to be humble. So this is very important. It's not about, oh, I'm right and you wrong. No, it's how do we find a solution to the common problem we have, because we are both in this together. We are a team, and whatever affects one person affects the other person, right? So arguments will always be part of the deal. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. If you are just, if you love the clarity and content that we just been, sharing with you, please consider subscribing to our channel. We love expanding our community. Turn on the notification bell so you can be informed whenever we release a new show, and we do so every single day. Share, like, subscribe, comment below. Let everybody know that a long-term relationship, it's something beautiful. It's something enriching. It's a great experience that people need to have, but it's not easy. All right. Another thing that you need to know is that you can still find your partner attractive after seeing and hearing his or her gross moments. Now, what do I mean by that? The thing is, when you live with someone for a long time, at some point, they become your brother or sister, right? So you can share a bathroom with them and still have a very, fiery sex life, right? So, it's kind of funny. If you just watch TV series or documentaries about long-term relationships, you see that everything goes, right? What I mean by gross moment, you might find out from time to time that your partner, has pooed in the toilet and forgot to flush, or basically you may have seen that he or she has, maybe shaved in the bathroom and you have traces of hair in the bathroom, right? Now, gross moments might also include things like farting, right? Sleep talking, weird screaming during nightmares or dreams, laughing in a weird way, rumbling in the gut, hiccups, burps, sneezing, right? All of those things are natural. All of those things are biological. We are biologically programmed to have those things. And basically you have to accept them. And this is what makes the person a human being. All right. I have a friend who basically was telling me the other day that he was very surprised when he heard his girlfriend's vagina queef. There's something called queefing, and that's a vaginal wind. And that's the kind of sound that it's a sound of an air pocket being pushed out of the, a woman's vagina. And he was pretty surprised about that. And he found it very gross. And I was like, listen, this is part of life. This is really, this is the woman you love. And this is normal. It is biological. So you can still find your partner attractive even after seeing or hearing his or her gross moment. You will experience temptation and may even consider cheating. Let's keep it real. You've been in a relationship for 40 years or 30 years or 20 years. If there is no innovation, if there is routine, people get tempted, and you might be tempted. Now, there is one thing to be tempted, and there is another thing to act upon that temptation, right? I'm not asking you, I'm not recommending you act upon it. What I'm saying is that it will happen. You will experience this temptation. You might be seeing very hot guys or hot girls at the gym or in the streets, and you might be thinking, oh wow, I wish I could have that, right? But those things are normal. Those things are human to have a crush on someone while in a relationship. Again, the thing you have to do here is you have to do two things. Number one, do not act on the temptation. Stay away from it. And number two, try to change yourself and or your partner to make sure the fantasy that you are seeing outside, you can recreate that fantasy in your relationship. All right, because what that person has outside, you can also work with your partner to have it. You already know the person, right? So think about extending the maturity of your relationship as opposed to chasing very volatile and stupid relationships, short-term relationships. All right. Another thing you need to know, and they never tell you, is that you need to build some strong forgiveness muscle. Very important. If you are in a long-term relationship, you're gonna forgive. You're gonna have to forgive, and forgive a lot, and all the time, or at least most of the time. It's very important that the ability to let things go is critical, especially as you age, because you know your partner, he or she knows you also. You are vulnerable, he or she is also vulnerable. So it's very important to stick to the big things and let small arguments, small things slide. All right, this is very important. Now, don't be surprised if from time to time he or she brings it up again in an argument, like past issues. If he or she brings it up again in a dispute, those things are normal. Again, we are humans, but you have to expect those things. The most important thing is not the things that happen, is how you react to them, right? So forgiveness should be atop your list. I'll be right back right after this. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're still having a wonderful conversation around stuff no one tells you about long-term relationships that you got to know. Another thing nobody tells you is that your sex drive will fluctuate from time to time, and so will your partners. What I'm trying to say here is that you will have dry spells, right? And this is no big deal, right? The thing here is you have to really communicate. You have to be open about your sexual needs, and he or she has to do the same, right? And the idea is to have a conversation, is to create a platform where you can have an honest, mature, and open conversation, right? Things happen. Again, problems will happen. Problems will arise. How you deal with them, how you handle them, that's what really matters, right? So, if the fire is fading away, how do you rekindle the relationship? How do you rekindle the passion? Those are the things you have to think about. Do you have to go on vacation? Do you have to tweak a few things in the bedroom? Do you have to tweak a few things in your sex life? Whatever you have to do. Do you have to maybe start exercising, you and your partner, so that you get some kind of rejuvenation back in the body? Whatever you have to do it. But it is important to know that libido will fluctuate from time to time. Another thing you need to know is that you will question the relationship from time to time, and that's normal, right? Again, a long-term relationship is like a contract, right? You've been working with someone for so many years, and you know them, they know you, and it's just okay to ask questions, to question the relationship, to sort of think about ways to improve the relationship. It's all about improvement. It's all about questioning the status quo. It's all about making progress, right? Because if you're not making progress, you are declining, and nobody wants that. So you want to really keep moving on always, all the time. So the fact that you're questioning the relationship doesn't mean that your love, the affection you have for your partner has reached a low. No, it just means that you are seriously into the relationship. You are seriously into making sure the relationship moves forward, and you're just trying to find ways to ameliorate things in the short and long run. All right, so it's pretty normal, right? It's pretty normal. And one thing that you also need to know that they never tell you is that things will get boring sometimes. That's a no-brainer, right? I mean, imagine in your own life, if you've been doing something for, let's say, the same thing for 1 month, 2 months, top 6 months, or 1 year, wouldn't you be bored after a while? Now multiply that by 20. You have 20 years, and you're doing this with someone else who has different needs, who is a different individual. So of course, things will get boring. Now, the thing here is that the idea again is that it's not what's going on here. It's not the boredom that has crippled into your relationship. It's how you address it. It's how you fix it, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing to feel some kind of lethargy, but it's important to realize that the excitement and raw passion of the honeymoon phase, what I call the initial stage, will fade to a degree, but you gotta constantly rekindle it. You gotta constantly fire it up. You got to constantly maintain it. It's all about maintenance, folks. It's all about maintenance. Think about it as a car, right? You have a new car. You've been driving the car for 5-10 years. If you don't maintain that car, the car is totally kaput, right? That car is going away. It's the same thing. Relationships are not that different from everyday things we know, right? So apply the same degree of maintenance, the same degree of attention, same degree of focus on your relationship, or even more on your relationship as you would on your car. All right? I'll get right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're still having a conversation here about stuff no one tells you about long-term relationships that you got to know. If you love the content so far, please consider subscribing again to our channel. Smash the notification bell so you are informed whenever we drop a new show. Subscribe again. I mean, like the content, share, and comment below. Let us know your relationship advice. Let us know your relationship experience. Have you experienced something else? Have we forgot about something else in the list we just given you? Just let us know. Share the intellectual wealth you have when it comes to relationship. Another thing you need to know when it comes to relationship, long-term relationship, is that sometimes you'll have to go to bed angry, and that's okay. I'm not talking about hungry, angry. You are going to bed mad, right? People always say, well, there's an old adage that says that couples should never go to bed angry, right? This might sound like good advice, but in reality things are different. It's just impossible to maintain this sort of serenity over 40 years or 50 years. So sometimes you have to go to bed angry. The thing here is that you have to understand how to fix it, how to fix this the next day. Again, communication is important here. Do not be disgruntled. Do not hold grudges over a long period of time. It's just a waste of energy, a complete waste of energy, not only from your side, but also from your relationship, right? Because after a while, things become toxic and you can't handle anymore. So it's okay if you go to bed angry once in a while, but make sure the following day you're able to have a conversation with your partner about what went wrong and how to fix it going forward. It's all about talking. It's all about communication. All right, folks. So this is really it. What I wanted to talk to you today, and and the context of today's show is very simple. Right now, you may be enjoying the initial phase of your relationship, the honeymoon stage, as specialists call it. Right? I mean, that's wonderful. That's great. However, you might need to switch, or rather adjust your thinking in the long run. If your couple manages to pass the initial phase and maintain the relationship over time, and I congratulate you for that, just remember that some unpleasant things could creep out every now and then. Nothing serious, but it's better to know them in advance. So here are the stuff I spoke about today. You'll be vulnerable at times, and that's okay. It's not always about you. Arguments are part of the deal. You can still find your partner attractive after seeing and hearing his or her gross moments. You will experience temptation and may consider cheating. You'll need to build some strong forgiveness muscle. Your sex drive will fluctuate from time to time, and so will your partner's. You will question the relationship from time to time, and that's normal. Things will get boring sometimes. Sometimes you'll have to go to bed angry, and that's okay. Now, here's today's call to action when it comes to relationship. I just have a series of little gestures and tips to help you improve your relationship and hopefully extend it until death do you part, do both of you part. And the idea here is that you want to be honest in a relationship, right? Because any issues you avoid or truths you don't want to acknowledge will likely undermine your relationship in the long run. I'm not talking about 1 day or 2 days or 1 month. I'm talking about those little creepy feelings and emotions that get added up and that, in aggregate creates issues and explode one day, right? And the thing here is that communicate. Remove any communication barriers. You want to trust your partner. You want to respect his or her boundaries and privacy. Allow him or her to have give him or her some space so that they can develop and they can develop as a person, right? The last thing you want to do is micromanage your partner. All right? So thank you for listening. I wish you good luck in your relationship. I will see you next time, and until then, stay marvelous.